as we get into this game, we have Cephalopod, who has opted to bring in the Ezreal in Twisted Fate against Stan, who is on the Noxus Freljord Ashen Sejuani. As I said earlier, I feel like that generally the Ashe Sejuani list does have a favor in this matchup, but as it is, very aggressive. But we saw Cephalopod take down the last match with Ezreal Twisted Fate versus Ashe Sejuani incredibly easy and efficiently, and also nabbing himself some 4 mana and 5 mana harsh winds that he didn't even have to use. So we'll see how this game goes.
Yeah, and sometimes with all the stealing, it can just be as strong to deny them those options and to give yourself the information than it is to use them yourself. Doesn't hurt when they get double discounted from the black market merchant, but that was actually a really interesting situation that we just saw, where we were looking at Cephalopod's decision making when it came to what to establish on one, and really more importantly with the Zonite Urchin in a card I think we're going to see a lot more of over the next few weeks and maybe even longer. What card do you discard off the start?
Yeah, a lot of it depending for the Zonite Urchin. It depends what you're playing against. If you're against a control list, you can take away one of your more proactive one of your proactive cards and search for your higher cost cards. But against the aggro list or even the mid-range list that have to play more aggressive against you, you're more looking to get rid of the bigger things at times. Sometimes even Riptide Rex if you need to, but generally your slower things if you need things that you need to play right away. So say if this list was like a burn aggro list, getting rid of the Riptide Rex doesn't feel that bad because you're probably not going to play it anyway because you've either won or you're dead.
Yeah, and we see a 4 mana thermogenic beam being thrown out to axe the 3/1. I kind of wonder why this play. What is the concern here? Because I'm thinking, is 3 damage to the face that big of a deal at this point?
Well, my thought is that because you're expecting Elixir of Irons and stuff, so that if you played on Sejuani, Elixir of Iron is going to counter it. So most likely Cephalopod felt like this is the value that he's going to get from it. This is less likely to be countered here, so he wanted to set up something a little bit more, I feel like. But
yeah, and that's certainly valid too, because I think, it's noteworthy to think about the brittle steals and the Elixir of Irons, those little 1 mana tricks. They're always in the back pocket, and as a player of Freljord, like you always want to have one of those just in case and keep that little 1 mana around. So Cephalopod knows Stan is going to be thinking about that, and even if they don't have it in hand, going to be saving that 1 mana just to keep Cephalopod on his toes.
Wow, a pass with 4 mana here, absolutely nuts. Stan has to be the aggressor here, and there is a chance that maybe Stan is looking, has Trifarian Glory Seeker, is worried about the Twisted Fate, or wants to find a way to deal with the Twisted Fate. But this is, as the aggressor, wow, it feels like so many of these lists have just been in trouble here with not, the being too reactive almost against these Ezreal decks. So I assume that Ashe Noxus has not been the deck to take down the... I don't know. I feel like it should be much favored, though, at the same time. It's just weird to see these passes on 4 mana with such a mid-range deck when there's so many good things to play at that point. Trapper, Ashe. There's just Bjerg even. There's just so many options. And to see nothing be played and the control list take over the board? That's not where you want to be.
Yeah, it's the chronic issue with mid-range being that finding that correct balance between your early game threats that can, set up a defense so you can get into that mid game, but also having enough of that mid to late game to actually be able to leverage that win condition. It's always a tough balance to find, and sometimes you can really get punished by drawing, once again, the wrong half of your deck. Now, I almost wonder, we've seen this specific matchup several times tonight, and I don't really feel like we've had a conclusive winner-loser in the matchup. I feel like we've seen both sides take wins at different times.
Yeah. There could be a setup for a Reckoning here. Reckoning is pretty big, and that's why I think part of the reason Cephalopod's going to be like, alright, I'm going to do as much damage to you as I can here, because I'm going to play Riptide Rex on turn 8. What are you going to do about it? So I assume we'll see a pretty big swing here, expecting Reckoning, and that's why I think we're seeing the TF even swing in to make this Reckoning have a little bit less value. Considering we saw all those passes early on, I feel like Reckoning is very much on the radar for Stan right now.
Yeah, and I think too, like, the throwing TF in there is basically telling Stan, I don't care if you clear it. Fine, whatever. Because I'm not trusting that you're going to be playing more creatures after this.
Yeah, on top of that, no Pilfer goods or anything to help level up this Twisted Fate. So it just helping the extra damage get in on the board. This allows 2 extra damage from the 2/1, or actually more likely 3 extra damage because most likely a 3/3 would have been blocked there instead. This allows the Butcher to stay alive and get some damage in, even though at the cost of Twisted Fate. Cephalopod is happy with this.
Yeah, I really like the Avarice and Trapper pickup. It's a nice little proactive threat that you can put down when you don't have anything else to play. It gives you a little bit of lasting value with the Yeti in the top of your deck, which, as the aggressive player right now, you're overjoyed with, right? So I think the Trapper is about one of the better cards, believe it or not, in this position that Cephalopod has established that you could have gotten.
Yeah, I think Trapper, especially earlier, can be very helpful, but doesn't really need it here. I mean, he has a really great hand, and this Riptide Rex is just going to absolutely destroy on curve next turn. He has the ability to play a 4 and a 3 if he wants, as well as still pink the spell mana that he doesn't even necessarily need.
And the Grifter's going to get yet another warning shot, so you'll have 3 warning shots for some face damage. The Petty Officer can actually summon a Powder Keg if you really want to get a little bit crazy and get some more damage in.
Yeah, I assume we'll see the Grifter just come out here, help with a little bit extra damage, as well as maybe hit something nice on the snab. Kato is not a bad find, and it is buffed as well from the Avarosian Hearthguard that was played earlier.
Yeah, the Avarice and Hearthguard. So although Nab now pulls from the bottom, so you won't be stealing Omenhawk buffs, you will still steal the buffs that either the Avarice and Hearthguard or the Tusk Raider will put on the entire deck. So that can be really nice for Bilgewater when you see that Hearthguard come down, because hey, that might just help me too. Thinking about what 3-drop is going to be the one going towards the Trapper.
Alright, just setting up the board, knowing that there are no attacks that Stan can really do here and be happy about it. And this Riptide Rex is going to blow everything up to smithereens, and then 1 card can be played for Stan, and I assume we'll then see the attack from Cephalopod, and most likely push lethal. I mean, there could be a Harsh Winds that could kind of delay it a bit, but with 3 warning shots in hand, and plus the additional Riptide Rex damage, I don't expect this game to last too much longer. Who needs Ezreal? You have Riptide Rex.
And that's one of the things with this deck that's made it so popular recently is, Ezreal in many ways is like, I don't know, a backup game plan, because you can put damage on them so many different ways. You have so many kind of powerhouses, not to mention the cards that you can steal. Sometimes you end up with a Kato, which can be a win condition that wasn't in your deck in the first place.
Yeah, we'll see if there's any, like, Fury of the North. Fury of the North could save the Hearthguard and also allow for the Harsh Winds to be played as well. So maybe we see something like that, and then, I mean, there is enough for, like, a Brittle Steel or something, but it really is just in delaying the inevitable at that point, as there is no board to recover if Harsh Winds is played. This is a tough spot to be in for Stan, and Cephalopod waiting for the answer, seeing, is there an answer? There is the Fury of the North, which ends up going on the Assessor, as it does save a little bit more health than having the 5/1 survive instead by 1 health, which makes a lot of sense to put it on the Assessor here. And Stan will have a chance to play something, or if there's nothing played here, we assume the Harsh Winds is in hand, or the Reckoning. Is that what we're going to see? The Reckoning does come down.
Indeed.
That's a pretty big Reckoning there. As we said earlier that we thought it was in hand. 4 cards down the drain, and this makes the attack look so much worse here. Is there a way for Stan to come back into this game after that Reckoning?
I think there definitely is. I think it's going to have a bit to do with what gets stolen with this pilfered goods. And also what...
Oh, that brittle steel could just prove to be disgusting. Not right now, but in the near future, I assume we're going to see it come up big.
Yeah, it's definitely going to... Stan's going to need to leverage the board state back. And more importantly, he's going to need to go and get pushing for the win faster because of the ability, obviously, of this TF Ezreal deck to easily push last 6 damage. That shouldn't be hard for the list.
I mean, there's still Mystic
they don't have it
shots
right
in
now,
this
though.
list. There's still Mystic shots in this list somewhere.
Yeah, Mystic shots are in there. You have 2 warning shots right away in hand anyways. Plus, now picks up the 1-mana Yeti. That's a 7/6 Drivarian, though.
Yeah, if only the Yeti had 1 more stack of health on it. Could also just make chump blockers with the Petty Officer too, but at this point, does it really matter that much? Depends what the rest of Stan's hand looks like.
I think Petty Officer might be the play.
Petty Officer plus Kato plus maybe a Brittle Steel could offer a lot of damage, or I mean the Yeti instead of the Brittle Steel too. Yeah, I mean you can only play one or the other between the or never mind. What am I saying? You have enough mana to play them both still. Yeah, I assume that's what we see is just a very wide deck, very wide build. Stan still could match that though. With 6 mana, there's a lot of options here.
Ash, definitely. Buffed up to the point whereby the Brittle Steel won't be able to affect it, thanks to the Hearthguard.
Yeah, I assume that we'll see the Petty Officer just to be safe on the blockers, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense here. And then
I think
can still follow up with another 3 mana, 3/3 as well. Like I said, as long as you don't die here, you're pretty good overall. And at 20 HP, not all that scared.
Debating with the Powder Keg for a little bit more burst damage. Oh, but picks up an elusive 1/1.
Yeah,
between that and Kato, that could be brutal.
A lot of extra damage here. Yeah, wow. Pretty disgusting overall.
Well, right, and so this Prowling Cutthroat with Kato and the warning shots is lethal. That can't be touched based on what they have now. Obviously, they could frostbite it with a harsh winds. Yeah, plenty of ways to get around it.
Well, we already did steal 1 Brittle Steel too, so that's 1 less one that we know about. But yeah, this doesn't even need to block this other one because really, you don't need to at all. There's no Fury of the North that can be played, and even so, you're still very safe at 13 HP, being able to develop the Kato next and push for lethal this next turn.
Yeah, I think if you block, you're kind of going into what Stan wants. I think Stan knows that the board has to be secured, and I think if you fear, at least if you block the 7/6, I think if you're fearing that, and throwing an extra character that could theoretically be lethal damage, I think it's a mistake. And we actually see takes that idea even further and takes all of the damage.
Which makes sense.
And just
plays around Flash Freeze.
It definitely does. Now you can just open swing. I think Kato buffs the Cutthroat. You have plenty of things that can't be blocked. And of course, 2 more damage in hand anyways.
3 with the Powder Keg that can come from Petty
Right,
Officer.
of course.
So that's 3 reach here, and maybe let's see if this elusive can be dealt with along with the other two. So some chump blocks and a harsh winds would be a pretty big answer here.
But harsh winds, actually 1 harsh winds wouldn't be enough because you'd still get the 3 damage in off of the Petty Officer, which they don't know. Stan doesn't know that, but okay, decides to go ahead and hit the surrender button.
Yep. So I assume no harsh winds, no brittle steel. And even then, we still knew that it was pretty much over regardless. So Cephalopod will be taking the first game with a 1-0, taking it no more Ezreal Twisted Fate from his side. Now has to win with an Ashe Noxus deck of his own, or with the Lux Thrush deck.
Now, do you think Stan's going to run it back with the Ashe list?
The Ashe list is pretty tough to go into Lux Thrush. So, I don't know about that one. It's not fun to play against Lux Thrush. So, I don't know. Maybe Cephalopod's thinking that they're changing lists and that he's going to change his list as well. Oh, we'll be going back into it, wanting the mirror. Cephalopod feeling like that is his matchup.
All right,
We'll
back
see
to
what
the... We've seen
happens.
this mirror a few times now, but I do think it's a fairly exciting one. Now, like we've talked about, there is the Reckonings, which, although when combo with Frostbite, could still be, pretty impactful. Generally speaking, you're not going to get those massive board wipes like you'll see against other lists, and like we saw in the last match, which almost stabilized the board against Twisted Fate Ezreal. Omen Hawk on 1, there's nothing sweeter. Omen Hawk on 1 for the opponent, though. Now it's boring again.
Hawk for a hawk. Yeah, it's fine with me. I want to see what this Trifarian Glory Seeker does, if anything.
I want to see who draws the better buffed up creatures.
Ooh, no, Trifarian Assessor
Trifarian
is like the
Assessor,
best one.
massive. Yeah, absolutely massive.
Do it, do it, do
Do it.
Make the trade.
Perfectly symmetrical
Come
violence.
on. You know you want to. You don't want to take 5 damage here, I don't think.
Psh, no way. And you're not going to use a brittle steel on that. Come on. Put down the glory.
It's kind of funny
Seeker.
though, because if they don't take the trade, you take 5 damage anyway. So like they can both take 5 damage if they want. Well, depending on what the brittle steals and stuff, but you wouldn't play a brittle steel with no follow-up. So it looks like they're looking to take. They're like, do I want 5 damage or I want to kill the Glory Seeker? I mean, they both have 0 mana, so you know the trade's happening, and it's a bit. If you have no combat trick yourself, you definitely want to take that trade. Like if you don't have brittle steel yourself, where Cephalopod was more okay with it not being taken because he does have the brittle steel.
Oh my goodness, got the buffed up Trifarian Assessor and a buffed up Ashe.
I'm gonna
That's
guess
pretty
that
great.
Cephalopod won the Omen Hawk War.
I think so. And the other great thing about the Ashe buff is that it puts it out of brittle steel range. They're gonna have to damage it first. Which obviously for Ashe, we know it's such a high priority target. The opponent usually is gonna want to do something to help out killing it.
And we see the first time where we don't have the same cards playing against each other, and the 5/4 getting it in for 5 damage, a quarter of the Nexus health already gone, and it gotta be a pretty good start for Cephalopod here. Although this next card for Stan could prove big, and this stops the Trifarian Glory Seeker, or the Trifarian Assessor from really being all that great here, as it is now 0 attack, draw 1 instead of draw 2.
Yeah,
But
I think
Ashe-
now it's. Yeah, I think it's Ashe now.
Yeah.
Especially because they're down to 2 mana. There's no Culling Strike going to come in. Like, you don't even need to block. You can go down to 14. It'll be okay. Or you could block with Ashe and Brittle Steel if you're really feeling so inclined. Although I don't know if that's the play. I don't think it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
you don't have the
Stan's-
mana anyways. You don't have the
Yeah.
mana anyways.
I was gonna say, Stan playing the Iceville Archer at
Ooh!
this. Wow. Oh,
That's the counter. No, that's the counter. Yeah.
That's
Oof.
it.
That's the one.
Cephalopod is just over here laughing at this, seeing that Trifarian Glory Seeker come out, killing the Ashe that was buffed up. I mean, it was both their buffed units, but it's so painful to see that.
100%. Like, that's brutal.
Yeah, incredibly brutal here.
Now, I suspect we'll see a block here.
I would think so. Going down to 10 HP is a bit scary, But I think I like playing the Trifarian Assessor here first, as you're
You
guaranteed
think
to draw
so?
2. Yes, I think the guaranteed to draw 2 is too good to overlook right now.
Yeah,
Especially
you
in
don't.
a Trifarian versus Trifarian matchup.
That's true. I mean, so the Hearthguard now coming down does stop the attack getting to come down, but I don't think you necessarily have to attack. You can send the, or at least not with everyone. Although, going for it. The only thing is you can't obviously Brittle Steel the Hearthguard, but I guess they can trade into it and you're feeling decent about it anyways.
Yeah.
Especially with you having such a massive hand advantage.
So it looks like both trades will be taken, which makes plenty of sense here. And Brittle Steel isn't really worth it for the thing that can't block anyway. Much rather save it for Sejuani, Ash, or other more healthy creatures overall that can block. A bit of an awkward hand in some ways, but there are a lot of things that can be done with this hand. Reckoning could do something huge if Stan does have a bunch of low-cost creatures, but I highly doubt that to be the case here. It'll be interesting to see what we do end up seeing, as the Trapper will be able to pull a Yeti in the future, activating Trifarian Assessor further, which is extremely important in this match. But it looks like, yeah, I'll see the Iceveil Archer first to slow down this Yeti.
Yeah, and I suspect after this, it's what, probably another Trapper. Hope you pull a Yeti.
Yeah, I assume that the Trapper most likely comes down, as the Trifarian Assessor only draws 1. You've already played 1. Your opponent being down to 3 cards, though. This Trifarian Assessor number 2 could come in huge.
Yeah, I mean, and at the certain point, by the time they get one that gets them value, which, by the way, you're pretty heavily limiting, and you have the ability to limit with all of your freeze in your hand, as well as like the Sejuani and whatnot. Yeah, if they get an Assessor down, and then you get an Assessor down, you're basically back to square one. It definitely feels like Cephalopod has the kind of advantage. But that have received the Omen Hawk as well. Or no, that was the Hearthguard.
Yeah, it does feel really bad having to play the Trifarian as a draw 1. I mean, it's still a 4-mana 5/4 draw 1. That's a good card. But seeing your opponent draw 2, and then later we'll see most likely this Trifarian Assessor draw even more, is not going to feel very good for Stan here.
Yeah, and I think that's where the Iceveil Archer, maybe unintentionally, like unwittingly, really helped out. And oh my goodness, picks up the Yeti. Wow. Now has actually several options where you can Sejuani and put a Yeti down and still have the Brittle Steel. You could have gone for the Assessor with a Yeti, but I don't think you need to do that yet.
Yeah, I assume that we see... Ooh, so at 6 mana, what would they be holding onto here? Harsh Winds, I would assume. I know it's 8 mana, but I said 6 because I was already thinking of Harsh Winds. So we assume that Harsh Winds is in the hand and going to be the play, but we do know that Culling Strike cannot follow it up.
So Sejuani's gonna probably go and harpoon something. The Yeti, right?
Oh, I was thinking that you would use the 5/1 against it, because then you can Brittle Steel the 5/1 if they block the Sejuani with that, but they're not going to.
Right.
But
yeah,
even
I
then
think
you can Brittle Steel
too
whatever.
Telegraphed.
Yeah, whatever Sejuani has, but it should be fine. Alright.
Yeah.
Wanted to keep the 5/5 safe, which makes more sense looking at this, because then the 5/1 can't take it down. And there is the 5... You actually get more off... they really want to do the damage to the Sejuani, because, I mean, maybe they have Fury of the North for it, because if not, just like this block, you're actually losing... You're getting more damage to you done than if you block the 3/3, but there's the Harsh Winds. I assumed something would be coming down, and you do want the damage on the Sejuani, so that is why the 5/1 is blocking it. Taking 3 damage here is not the end of the world. And
just trying to decide about the Brittle Steel. Protects the Sejuani. In a weird way, it also protects Sejuani from their Brittle Steel as well.
Yeah.
Just kind of doing the math on it, looks like.
Yeah, it is. Ooh, decides that he wants to keep the Trifarian up. which
Just preserving the as wide of a board as possible, I suppose. Also
well,
allows for everything to live for the assessor.
Yep, the Assessor, when the card advantage is so incredibly important in this matchup because it is a very grindy matchup. Who draws the Assessors? Who draws the, yeah, generally who draws the Assessors? And you can also make other arguments for Sejuani at times, Ashe at times, but Trifarian Assessor is really the star of the show. So thinking about what he'll do here next, it's interesting because if you can block in some cases with Fury of the North, like onto the 3/3 for instance, then you can have another Trifarian Assessor proc, but that might be a little bit going at it a bit too hard in some ways. He's trying to decide, is this Trifarian Assessor worth it? Can I get away with only drawing 2 cards rather than 3? Because most likely my Yeti is going to die anyway, unless I do play Fury of the North on it. So, interesting
Yeah, you
choice.
could play Fury of the North on the Trapper, but then you're spending 8 mana for 1. You're not even netting a card. You're just cycling. You're trading the Fury of the North for another card.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee that they'll attack then either.
Well, and then the Fury of the North isn't actually Fury of the North. It's that / Sejuani, which it may be pretty important for you to get another Sejuani down to remove something. So.
Yeah, and really, this Sejuani does not get that much damage in, despite killing the Yeti, which feels nice. But 1 damage isn't going to win you the game, especially when the hand state looks like this, the board state looks like this.
Well, you also can protect the Yeti with the Fury of the North if you want it. I don't think, doesn't look like that's the play.
Yeah, just further
kind of
developing
unnecessary.
Here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely worth thinking about in some cases. Wow, 3rd Trifarian Glory Seeker. Alright, or not Glory Seeker, Assessor. 3rd Trifarian Assessor.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Just go ahead and grab
right?
3 cards
because
now. I think, yeah.
I mean, your opponent can grab 3 cards too if they have it, but they've played 1 already.
Yeah, that's going to put you at 7 cards to their 4.
In this matchup too, could even play Kato and then play Assessor. That leaves no combat tricks afterwards though, but it does leave you with a huge hand and a scary board.
Yeah, Kato also really, even as great as the card draw from Assessor is, Kato allows you to push a lot of damage now and kind of just work towards the win, especially with Fury of the North in hand as well with 2 overwhelm creatures. Like, that gives you a lot of ways to finagle a lethal.
Yeah, we'll have to see what Stan plays there. I would love to see Stan's hand right now. I mean, wow, thinking what could help him here. Like, there is no, like, Harsh Winds Reckoning. Harsh Winds Reckoning would be insane here if it wasn't, if it was an opportunity to do it, it would be absolutely nuts. I guess Fury in the North would counter it a little bit, but it would still be a pretty big swing. Oh, they have a Trifarian Assessor too! Look,
oh
two
my
good
goodness.
players. And the hands are full. Oh, it's really interesting to see these attacks going through, assuming what's the calculation here for lethal. That gets blocked. Everything mostly gets blocked. There isn't enough damage here, even with Fury of the North. So I feel like, I wonder if Trifarian Assessor is too important here, because now the tides have turned and Stan has the card advantage. Not quite the board advantage, but maybe after these trades, might not be all that worried. Especially if there is a Harsh Winds that keeps so many things alive. Cephalopod debating about if the attack is worth it, and maybe he needs to draw the cards too, which I personally think he does, because that's his last Trifarian Assessor, and it's going to be really hard to rebuild that board afterwards. And he decides that will be the play. It does also give him a Brutal Steel.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously we see the Harsh Winds, which is excellent. Especially, interestingly, Harsh Winds with Reckoning. You do have available next turn with 12 mana.
Yeah, but with the Sejuani be on board, the likelihood of there being Fury of the North is extremely high, but that does not save anything that gets Harsh Winds. I mean, in this case, it doesn't actually help Stan that much. And really, playing 2 Fury of the North to save 1 Sejuani or something, you'd rather just redevelop the Sejuani at that point. Oh, I really like this freeze target from Stan, as Kato was going to be, the target for Kato is the 4 health creature that can't block, because that is the less likely thing to be dealt with, as well as the fact that people don't want to do damage to the thing that can't block anyway. So we're saying,
Yeah.
alright, I'm gonna go ahead and swing this in. The 5-1. And the archer is there to take the damage. I don't think we'll see a brittle steel here, as it's really just not worth all that much. The creature can't block anyway. It's just one less thing. Like, overall, I really like that attack because that creature cannot block anyway. So forcing the opponent to do the block for him before the combat begins is really important. But yeah, it's crazy how that Ice Veil Archer was able to stop pretty much a full-on onslaught, but also to the buff Sejuani. A 6/7 Sejuani is hard to deal with. But maybe with the Culling Strike, Reckoning, Harsh Winds, maybe that story will change a bit. We still haven't seen an Ash from either player though, have we?
No, we haven't. I think Reckoning feels like the wrong decision here. Because you blow all of your mana to kill their 2 biggest things, but you also lose 2 blockers in the process.
Yep.
Meanwhile, they keep all their mana to redevelop.
Yep, exactly. Highly agree with that. As much as the play seems like quite a bit of fun to watch, blowing all the mana definitely isn't worth it, especially when you have quite a few blockers to work with here. Ooh, Farron coming down. That will put Cephalopod on a tight clock here. And I assume we'll see Harsh Winds on the defensive side during this block. Maybe even paired with Fury of the North to try to kill the Sejuani off too. Looking
has to be careful about the mana expenditure here. Harsh Winds, Culling Strike, that takes them to 9. Wants to keep on for probably the Brittle Steel. So Omen Hawk can come down as an extra blocker for one of these non-breakthrough
for
creatures.
The 5/1. Just absolutely insane. But yeah, this clock that we're now on it's ticking.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Cephalopod does not have the same clock here at all. Where before I felt like Stan was going to have the hard time here, and then all of a sudden the Ice Veil Archer came down, and the Trifarian Assessors came down, and the whole thing flipped over.
Let's see.
So there is the Harsh Winds. Will we see the Fury of the North follow-up as well?
Seems like it could be easily responded to keep the Farron alive. An elixir or one of their own, because they also have Sejuani out, so there could be a Fury of the North as well.
No. So a little bit of a change up here. Try and get a bit more damage onto the Farron, because that Farron is very scary, and on top of that, it does now put it at 3 health instead of 4, so Brittle Steel is now on the table against this Farron for future attacks.
Or for future reckonings. If I'm being cheeky.
Man, what a good game.
Decimate. Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, so that's Decimate numero uno. We see a Trifarian Glory Seeker coming down, and that's pretty nice too, because you can go ahead and set that up for the open swing, besides the fact that there's really not as much that they can do about it as Freljord Noxus. But still, setting up the plays here with Kato going alongside the Reckless Trifarian, and of course Sejuani also has the Overwhelm. Fury of the North sits in hand in case things get a little narrow, but doesn't need to put the Trifarian Assessors in, I guess preserving them for blocking should things go awry, as Harsh Winds, as we know, Harsh Winds can really skew the situation here.
Yeah, there is a lot of trades going on. And I assume both players are holding on to Brittle Steel at this point. Stan hasn't played any of his, I don't believe, but at this point, with so many draws from Trifarian Assessor, it'd be hard to believe that there is no Harsh Winds or Brittle Steel, and there is the Harsh Winds, which I assume Kato will survive through a Brittle Steel. Trying to decide, Stan, trying to decide, do I play around Brittle Steel? And it looks like the answer is going to be yes, which is a huge change in the way that this goes down. And another Brittle Steel just to be a bit more brutal. Wow!
Oh my lord!
Every
frostbite.
Oh, that board change, that state changes incredibly hard very quickly. And what is there to do? There's a Fury of the North that can try to help out a bit, but really just not doing enough here. Brittle Steel, Culling Strike onto Farron, but saving a 5-1 doesn't really help all that much either. This is just absolutely brutal.
Yeah, it'd be one thing if the 5-1 even could block, but it obviously, with it not being able to block, you're not really preserving a blocker. Yeah, that's oof.
And still, 2 decimates in hand. What is Cephalopod going to do here?
Yeah, this is so. It's not necessarily the end of the world. You do have the Brittle Steel ability to go on the only overwhelmed creature. So if you can match creature for creature, or be able to obviously remove them with something like your Culling Strike, you have the ability to try to get around it, but you're gonna take some damage here. Yeah, I don't know. I think this might just be it, because these decimates, like you said, they really put a clock on things.
Yes, and Farron is a good card. Even with this, I mean, yeah, even with this Brittle Steel, what next? That's it. There is no Tavern Keepers in any way. It doesn't even matter, as there is 10 mana or 11 mana in the hand of Stan, and decimates only cost 5 mana apiece. So that is going to be the game here, as there's nothing else that Cephalopod can do, and we'll be going on to game 3 after a 1-1 score. And there's the attack, the Yeti getting in for 5 damage, 4 left, and that is going to be it for this game.
Yeah, nothing else that can be done, obviously. So it's going to be the old surrender button for Cephalopod. That's going to knock out the Ash and the Ash Sejuani list for Stan, which I'm trying to remember leaves what? There's a Bannerman list in there somewhere. Correct.
Zed Bannerman, right, for him?
Mm-hmm.
And then against the Thrush Lux, which I feel like Thrush Lux is favored into pretty much most of the list that Stan has, unless he also has any other Thrush Lux, then I'd have to look at those individually. There is a Ezreal TF for Stan as well, I thought. Oh yeah, they can't have a Lux Thrush because they're running the Bannerman list. Yeah, so Ezreal TF and then the Bannerman Zed.
Right. And so that would be what's left for Stan. For Cephalopod, that leaves this deck that we're seeing here, this Thresh and Lux, and then as well as the one that we just saw, which was the Ash and the Ash Noxus list. So gets a Radiant Guardian in hand now. I think that's going to be a pretty big key to the matchup, just like I feel like we say every time with Radiant Guardian.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought 5 mana 5/5 with Lifesteal and Tough? Pretty good card. Even more so when comboed with cards like Single Combat, a 2 mana card. And then you even have Unyielding Spirit, which makes it so it can't die. Pretty good combo.
Oh, hey, look. And what's better than 1 Radiant Guardian than 2 Radiant Guardians?
Yeah, you thought 1 was done with? Yeah, Radiant Guardian becoming even stickier with the less Ionia being played, as well. Ionia is not near as good as it used to be. So we see things like Radiant Guardian stick a little bit more, and then Cephalopod finding the Binding Assault for the future to make sure this Radiant Guardian is activated, which can prove very hard for these Ezreal decks to deal with without Thermal Beam. With Thermal Beam, they have a bit of a better chance, but with the second Radiant Guardian, better hope for a second Thermal Beam.
And so this is interesting because getting the Challenger one does prohibit a lot of the, like it prohibits, well, maybe not the TF play because the TF could get the stun, but any of the sort of engine creating creatures like a Black Market Merchant or something like that, you want to wait to play until after the Challenger creature's gone. It would have been crazy.
Feast.
That's actually ridiculously potent there. Gets a Sergeant, Vanguard Sergeant in hand off of the last breath.
And
last last gasp, something.
And two, because a lot of the removal in Cephalopod's deck is based off creature-based removal, meaning things like single combat and concerted strike, the open attack there is no way to really be punished, so 3 damage, chip damage for the TF deck and Ezreal deck is always liked. And we have not actually seen this deck win from TF or from Ezreal level up one time today. It has all been from Riptide Rex, just chip damage throughout and then Riptide Rex finishing it off. So will we actually see Ezreal level up in a game? Maybe.
Who knows? I mean, it almost feels like Ezreal is much more present as a 3-drop. Less as a win condition, at least the way that they've been being piloted in these sorts of matchups. We see the Valor summoning card here. You can tell I don't play as much Demacia. We have the Valor summoning card. I really do enjoy seeing that one included. Having a Challenger's great. Having another Scout's great. I mean, for 2 mana, 2/1 Challenger Scout, I'd buy that creature for sure.
Radiant Guardian activator. Exactly why it's
well,
in the
especially
list.
Yeah, I mean, you can make them kill something of yours. It's pretty nice. Those hapless aristocrats weren't going to get blocked.
Yeah, they were doing chip damage all day.
That's right.
Ooh, Cephalopod saying, alright, you know what, I'm fine with you skipping your turn. Yeah, I mean, at 16 health, makes sense. And if they're not leveling up Ezreal, then you're okay with it. And Riptide Rex at this point isn't going to be all that bad for him.
Yeah, and so with this situation, you could have gotten they could have gotten the Radiant Guardian down, right? Now you can put down Lux and you can single combat to really utilize the barrier. That's pretty nice. You also could get like Thresh down so that if they attack, you can get a lot of trades and start getting Thresh closer to leveling up. You also have the single combat, which could help with that as well. So there's a few different, I think, pretty darn viable lines. I guess you could go Vanguard Sergeant for Demacia if you really wanted to get goofy.
Yeah, less about the for Demacia, but more for the just getting bodies on the board to be able to block, in some cases even favorably. But I kind of like the Thresh lane here because it does, it makes the attack pretty much not possible anymore and does threaten this TF in the future as well. Yeah.
And 5 mana to work with on Stan's side of the board. 6 cards in hand, so they're even on hand size. I just kind of wonder, how do you deal with this Thresh before it gets a ton of value? I mean, obviously you can deal with it, but that thermogenic
set up
beam,
a Mystic Shot on it.
I guess. I mean, yeah.
That has to be what it is here, or some kind of ping damage that they're setting it up for the future.
Yeah.
Which in
maybe they
some
stole
ways...
another Vile Feast.
Another Vile Feast. Wait, did they only play 1 steel card so far, though? I think they only played 1 steel card so far.
Yeah, they did. That's right.
So far.
So far. Well, I mean, I think at this point, TF kills a 1/1. Oh darn.
Good job, TF. Proud of you.
You did good, buddy. You went to combat for once. Good job. So that's the other thing too. Yeah, Valor can kind of force an interaction here. Maybe a Make It Rain comes down. That might be the best situation for Stan.
Yeah,
Especially if you can land it.
Is Stan's version running Static Shock in it? I know some versions have cut it and some are still running it. Or Static Shock could be...
Oh, Static Shock would be the best of both worlds here. We haven't seen a build with it today, but I can't see his list, so I'm not...
Oh, there it is!
Aha, good call.
The Static Shock is there, but Cephalopod can do other things if he wants to. Plenty of ways to pull his TF, but he doesn't need to. I mean, that's 4 mana, pretty expensive spell, and he still gets the attack. He still gets the attack with Radiant Guardian, and there is not a single thing that Stan can do about it.
Yeah, could go Radiant Guardian for sure. Probably will. And I mean, if you swing, they have to give up either their strongest creature, their TF, or just
probably
not get any
Spider.
damage on it. Yeah. So yeah, you know you chump block Spider, you're just not putting any damage on anything. You know, and I mean you also can swing with your Hapless Aristocrat if you want to put a piece of damage on something. It's just yeah, you have a lot of different ways to do it. You also can single combat if you want. Take out TF now, take out TF later, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I think you save the Hapless Aristocrat here because in the future you want it to die to play your other Radiant Guardian, and but you still want the chump blocker too. So it doesn't really get the same value if it attacks here. Sure, it might kill the other Spider, but you really want it to activate the other Radiant Guardian, as keeping these Radiant Guardians up against these Ezreal decks is a pain for them to deal with.
Yeah, and like we see, like we saw the Thermogenic Beam be played a little bit earlier, but that's generally one of the better answers to the Radiant Guardian. So, or just any of these beefier threats, is you don't want to be using 2 or 3 smaller pings. You want to be trying to get them out of the way without using too many of your cards. Now, if you can get Twisted Fate leveled up, it becomes a lot easier to put those sort of combo pieces, not combos necessarily, but put those chains together, because he will be damaging things himself and cycling cards. But before that happens, you know, it can be a little bit of a struggle to find those removal points. And yep, we see the single combat come through on this turn.
Yeah, and makes a lot of sense that there's 0 mana for there to be a response from Stan.
Well, interesting too that the Petty Officer did summon a keg, powder keg, as opposed to you know, a 1-drop. So we might be seeing like a Mystic Shot, which will get a +1 and put damage on that Radiant Guardian.
I assume that Keg was for the Mystic Shot as well. So maybe that was all part of the plan, to play into single combat and, well, I mean, not play into single combat, but be okay with the single combat happening.
Mm-hmm.
And another Radiant Guardian could be slapped down here with, I mean, Thermal Beam is a bit of a punishment. I mean, you could do Mystic Shot into Thermal Beam.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
Pretty gross.
Well, and it also means you're losing 2 of your 3 Radiant Guardians, which, as we've already established, are pretty essential.
Yeah, it'd be a bit too forward to do that, and I think keeping the Concerted Strike up as an answer to other things is nice, but still deciding, do I want to do this? My opponent is passing on 8 mana. Yeah, he's confused. Like, you all, as I said, can't see him, but he's kind of confused about this 8 mana pass. So he's going to go ahead and take it, because it is really greedy not to, you know, just play the Mystic Shot on the 5/2 and pass with 8 mana generally, I would say. But here it is, probably the Mystic Shot. Yep, the Mystic Shot onto the other Radiant Guardian. We know that there is no answer to it. And will we see the Thermal Beam, which would be pretty huge here, but not game-ending by any means. I would still even say that Cephalopod has a bit of a favor, even with a Thermal Beam coming down here. And let's see where it is. It's a Make It Rain. What does the Make It Rain for? Maybe a Black Market Merchant or a Pilfered Goods?
Did manage to hit the face there. So, yeah, I mean, if indeed there is a Pilfered Goods, aha!
Yeah. So 2 reduced cost cards here. I mean, this is 2 cards you know, essentially paid 2 cards to draw 2 cards. So,
Mm-hmm.
is it something juicy? We'll have to find out.
My money's on a single combat.
Ooh, man. I think a vengeance.
Oh, a vengeance. That's juicy.
Imagine if the vengeance just killed Lux right now. I'd
yeah.
feel bad.
Just get out of here.
Oh, I'd feel a bit bad. I mean, the glimpse beyond would make it a little less bad, but it'd still feel pretty bad.
It'll still feel bad. Although, if I'm being honest, I do feel like at this point, if a vengeance comes down, kills the Lux, that's pretty much all they're doing.
Yeah, but problem is that's also all what Cephalopod is doing too. And even though I guess the Radiant Guardian is still up, and I don't really expect like an Ezreal kill. Ooh, Cephalopod thinking about leveling up this Lux right now and getting a Spark. I really wonder what is in the hand of Stan right now with 9 mana and 6 cards? Maybe an Ezreal in there. Let's see what else. He's going to give us a clue to 2 of the cards, it looks like. I mean, 2 of them are also from Cephalopod's deck, too. So,
yeah.
I mean, imagine if the vengeance did come down. Oh, nope. We're just seeing a little bit of clear happening. Nothing too exciting.
Well, it is pretty relevant because those things would have presented a lot more damage with the Fortimacia. And Lux gets the big level up.
Yeah, I mean, the chomp blockers will do a little something here. Just trying to decide what next. I mean, Lux still does have the barrier from when she was spawned in the first place. Cephalopod's saying, I don't really care if you block with your 3-1, it's going back to a 5-5 anyway. I'll wait to use my final spark until after the combat.
Yeah.
So very safe attacks here. Really, nothing can go wrong at 4 mana. Just getting rid of the chump blockers. And depending if there is, I assume nothing's played from Stan, so the fate of this Black Market Merchant will be a final spark to its face, and we'll see if Stan has anything to follow up on after that, as Cephalopod will have 0 mana, so it is safe to develop after this, if there is anything to develop, such as perhaps an Ezreal, or a Radiant Guardian of their own!
Wow, what a steal.
What a steal. We said Vengeance, they took the Radiant, single combat Vengeance, they took the Radiant Guardian. Wow, that is...
So now every Radiant Guardian in the 2 decks have been presented.
Yes. So no more Radiant Guardians for Cephalopod. He's going to want to get something going on it. The Concerted Strike obviously can kill the Radiant Guardian, which does not surprise me if that is done, as a Thermal Beam cannot kill either of these units at the time. They are safe. There is no counter in the deck of Stan to do anything against this. I mean, if you want to say something really cheeky, you know, a triple
Maybe
Mystic
they
Shot
had
on Deluxe.
Or maybe they stole a 3rd Concerted Strike.
Or, you know, maybe they did steal that, what do you call it? Well, actually, single combat still doesn't work for it. Single combat plus a Mystic Shot, easy. Kill the Lux.
Hey, there you go. There you go. But in more likelihoods, nothing was done about that.
Yeah, I mean, 99% of the time there is no counter to that, so I believe it is the right play to do so. So, just getting rid of the Radiant Guardian right away.
We got pretty hyped about that stolen Radiant Guardian, but it did not really amount to anything.
It really just kind of died, and that was about it. Which, a bit of an annoyance just a little bit of annoyance, and Cephalopod was like, whatever, I'll kill it, fine, and that was it.
Also noticeable that this Glimpse Beyond has been sitting here for a bit. There hasn't really been targets for Cephalopod to blow up.
Yeah, there hasn't been that many spells from Stan either. I mean, there's a Lux alive on the board right now. Which can't be good for Stan.
Certainly not. And, I mean, you could just Fortimacia again.
Could. It's kind of weird because this deck that Cephalopod's playing generally isn't the aggressor, but it kind of has to be in this matchup. But his hand is not a very aggressive hand.
You almost wonder about like, at what point do you like glimpse beyond your 3/3 just to cycle?
I think it gets countered too often by like static plus static plus a mystic shot or something. Because
You don't think
obviously
that
they
that
don't
would be-
have 6 damage.
You don't think that would be worth them blowing 2 of their removal cards? I guess static does replace itself.
I'd rather them blow their removal cards and then I play Glimpse Beyond. I'd really stick it to them.
I can compromise there.
Why not both?
Why not both?
So he's eyeing this Twisted Fate, and Stan, knowing that this Twisted Fate probably doesn't have too much time left, not really a way to save him, has to decide what he wants to do next. Obviously, Riptide Rex has kind of been off the radar for a bit, as there hasn't been a good time to play it, and it would be a terrible time to play it right now. There is the Warding Shot in hand, but not much to do with it, unfortunately, for Stan.
No, and...
Ooh, alright, Ezreal is
There's
leveled.
Ezreal.
But at 20 health
that's
and
the
an
first-
8/8 Radiant Guardian.
Yeah, that's the first leveled up Ezreal we've seen on this cast, I believe.
Yeah, and this is interesting that they play it right before the final spark is in hand. So,
Maybe
what do you think they
baiting
have?
that?
I mean, because
Oof.
Cephalopod has answers after that, too. It's just
Maybe
pretty
another
strange.
Ezreal.
That's it. What? I don't know why you would play that. Do they really want the TF alive that bad? Alright, I mean, Glimpse Beyond is going to be an answer here. Could single combat for really anything, too. I mean, at that point, wouldn't you just use it on the... You would just use it on the Lux, because you don't care about the
Yeah,
lifesteal
you don't need
at
to
this
heal.
point.
You're at 20, yeah. I don't think you need to single combat, though. That feels a little excessive to me.
I mean, Ezreal, I saw him glance over it. Enough where he feels like... At this point, I think, even though you say it feels a bit excessive, my thought being is, if TF did manage to level up through, like, Pilfer Goods, Warning Shot to Pilfer Goods or something, or maybe 2 of them somehow, that could change the way that the game goes. So this is a very safe play, just to say, no, not even going to give you the chance of it. You have 3 cards in your hand, you're keeping those 3 cards, and I'm going to go ahead and draw 2.
Yeah, I mean, the Glimpse Beyond, definitely the way to go here, preserving the the value of the creature by replenishing your hand.
He was at 3 out of 8, so I guess, yeah, double... I mean, there's
got to be another Ezreal in there.
That you would think. I mean, playing the Ezreal, they must have had something to level up Twisted Fate if they were baiting out with the Ezreal, I feel like. That they were really hoping that the Twisted Fate could live and that they could play maybe another one of the Yorl Grifter plus the Pilfer Goods would have been enough to level it up. Hey, Saucy, thanks for the raid. Appreciate it. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, so,
It's a weird spot. Is there any way... there's no Thermo Beam if the Unyielding is played here. Is there any way for this Unyielding to be countered in a scary way? I mean, the board really can't go wide against him, but he's really at no hurry to play this Unyielding either. So
he's still
do
at 20
expect...
health. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And we saw one Ezreal die already, and even if the next Ezreal comes out, it's gonna do maybe 8 damage at best. And then it's just gonna be healed up again, and like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, this is not the position that Stan wants to be in, and I think the inability to push damage early, like meaningful damage, anyways, has really led to this position. And as great as the steal of the 3rd Radiant Guardian was, Cephalopod being able to slam that Radiant Guardian so early in the game, like basically on curve, just meant that whatever little chip damage had been done basically might not have even bothered.
Cephalopod thinking, do I try to get this Unyielding Spirit in? Really doesn't need to, but you know, using your mana does feel pretty nice as well. Goes ahead and passes because it's safe to do so. He doesn't really lose if he does pass here.
Yeah, and with every card with every turn that passes, the cards that can be drawn just stack heavier and heavier in Cephalopod's favor. I mean, there's a Lux that's dead, which means that but leveled up. That means there's 2 more leveled up Luxes in deck, and 3. Any one of those basically ends the game if he draws it.
Yeah, on top of that, if they do try to just throw beam this Gradient Guardian, which I highly doubt we'll see that play from Stan, but out of desperation, if it were to happen, Unyielding Spirit is there to save the day.
Yeah.
I would assume that more things would be played before that, but I mean, it's a possibility. As I said, the Radiant Guardian being alive causes a lot of issues. Oh, stole a Rekindler! That is why they sacrificed the Ezreal earlier, I assume. Stole a Rekindler. But
still has a Vengeance and a Concerted Strike.
with 3 cards in hand, this Ezreal is not going to be lasting for long between the 4 Demacia, and then there's other answers in the future too. It's never going to get an attack in. Ever. Like, really, it's just never going to happen. It's nice to know that the opponent did not steal Unyielding Spirit.
Oh my goodness, that would be so funny.
Unyielding Ezreal, please. Let's never talk about this idea. Trying to get a plunder here, misses it. I assume there's probably like a black market merchant or something, or trying to kill the 3-1 as well. Literally misses both of them, but I guess the plunder doesn't matter that much as Ezreal, you know, is going to get the attack. And there is the black market merchant. Oh yeah, really the plunder, the Make It Rain was really for this now 6-4 Grizzled Ranger, trying to get that out of the way to lose the scout on it, but this is a lot of damage going in. And really not having to worry about dying to this Ezreal. There is not the, you know, the rummages and stuff that the Karma Ezreal deck has, and as well as Karma allowing it to only play a few burst spells to kill you. Instead, Ezreal has to do a lot of work here to try to kill Cephalopod, and I really don't see any way how it's going to happen with this hand and this board state. It's looking like a pretty good game for Cephalopod here.
Yeah, I just don't think that that's Ezreal's not in this list. Not really supposed to be a burst you from 20. It's not an OTK. It's just going to be able to put the icing on the cake in a lot of matchups, you know.
Yeah.
Because I mean, hey, what's wrong with? There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I've got a character that can do 6 damage to my opponent's face. That's pretty good. It's just that needs to be the opponent needs to be at 6 and not 18.
Yeah. And, well, soon to be 20.
Ooh, a great point.
Yep, and then Concerted Strike can continue healing. Unyielding Spirit can continue keeping this alive, although it's at pretty much no threat except for a top deck Thermal Beam, which is going to be answered by this Unyielding Spirit if that were to be the case. And Cephalopod is going to be getting 6 damage in here, and just showing this game is falling a little bit more and more downhill. We already knew that was a tough spot for Stan, but Cephalopod double checking to see what maybe what this black market merchant stole, like how many cards that's his card and not his opponent's card, I think is what he's checking. He's trying to figure out if this is a stolen card or if his opponent naturally drew this card. And he's trying to see what hit. So trying to figure out if there's something of his he should be playing around, such as Vengeance, for example, I would think. So preemptively Unyielding Spirit could be punished by a Vengeance if the opponent stole Vengeance from Cephalopod's deck. So good heads up, thinking, is this a stolen card or is this their card? Alright, so out of Vengeance range, which I think that is the card he's thinking about for the Unyielding, but gonna go ahead and say, alright, we're just gonna take care of this Ezreal right now.
Yeah, and can still have just enough mana for the Unyielding Spirit.
Yeah, and you know, let's just go ahead and steal some, you know, we're at 25 life. We're actually more like at 30 life, but never mind that. I assume we might see the Unyielding Spirit come down here. And there is another Ezreal.
Wow, number 3.
And that Ezreal is going to be gone, and there's literally no way that the stand can win now once this third Ezreal's gone. Or it's not the third one. There's one other Ezreal because one was brought back by Rekindler.
Yeah, one was Rekindler,
but still, even regardless with this hand, he's never going to be able to get enough damage. Even if you had cards like Progress Day, which aren't typically played in Ezreal decks anymore, still is just never going to find enough damage here to deal with this. And on top of that, there's still the Radiant Guardian, which has been left untouched here.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a matter of just going through the motions at this point. And I think that, like, from a raw strategic perspective, there's no downside I feel for the losing player to not play out. Now, it's one thing to, like, rope, but I think, like, if you can just kind of go on autopilot, make your opponent kind of keep wearing out for another 3 rounds, you know, like, I guess there's a micro advantage there.
Yeah.
But at this point, this game, just I don't see any way that you come back.
Yeah, and with this block on the Radiant Guardian, if there was a Vengeance in hand, the blocks would have been on both the 3/3s, and then the Vengeance would be on Radiant Guardian instead. So this lets you know that they did not steal that from you. And a fun interaction that it sacrifices a unit, but not actually, so you just get a free draw.
I actually did not know about that one.
Yeah, because it says sacrifice unit, but it can actually sacrifice it. But it doesn't say to draw you must sacrifice. So the wording on Glimpse Beyond is interesting, where it allows you to do that combination.
News you can use.
Yeah. But yeah, I think he's still trying to figure out what that last card that was stolen was. I'm pretty sure it was, it's a stolen card. And he might also be thinking, hey, I don't know, is this a Lux? I think he forgot if he had a Lux die or not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe.
This is what it looked like there, that he was checking to make sure. And there is our first Riptide Rex coming in really late into this game, only going to be dealing 1 damage, and then another Glimpse Beyond to take a free draw all day long. Sacrifice a unit, teehee. Wow.
Yeah,
and
picks up another Rekindler too.
Yeah, and does this give... Not quite, I don't think. Is she at 6 from this? No. So she's at 4, I'm pretty sure, Lux is, and with the spider being alive, it does just leave enough. But I assume we see the attacks go on here anyway. A second Rekindler. Alright, we see the surrender come through.
There we go.
Now leading 2-1 against Stan, has the the Ashley Dwani list left, correct?
Yep. And looks like Stan has the choice between the Ezreal TF deck that we just saw and the Bannerman Zed Lucian deck that is waiting in the wings. One that I wouldn't mind seeing. So here's for hoping.
I assume that the Bannerman deck isn't played, as it is a hard matchup into the Ashe and Nox list. Or did we see that list earlier where they... No. Did we see that list earlier where they played against each other? Ashe first. No, I think I'm thinking of the semifinals. We'll have to see.
So yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of decks, a lot of similar decks. We've also been watching two players in particular as we move through this bracket. So Cephalopod has used the Ezreal TF and the Lux Thresh. The one game that was won by Stan was the Ashe Mirror, I believe. Which means that the Ashe and Ashe Nox 2 Kato, as is noted here in the deck list. That one is the, I think, final remaining list for Cephalopod to have to win with. Stan would have to beat that deck with both
and they're
the
both
Bannermen.
pretty in favor too.
Yeah. Although I think we've seen the TF deck pull out wins against Ashe Nox a couple times, so I think that one might be more unfavored on paper than in reality.
I would much rather play the TF Ezreal than Demacia. I just feel like just gets destroyed by Ashe Nox. Just once they slap down a 1-mana 5/5, you're just kind of done for. That's just it.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely, I mean, I think that Bannerman can always just tempo out a perfect curve and stomp a little bit if the opponent doesn't get quite the right answers, you know? But agreed. I think that from the strictly strategic perspective, I probably would go with the TF Ezreal deck as well. And let's see where we end up. But you never know. You could always go for the change up, which is what Stan decides to do. Brings the Zed and Lucian. It's kind of exciting.
Alright, sees a double Reckoning hand, gets rid of that automatically, as Reckoning isn't going to be very great against Demacia in most cases. It can be if they draw the lower end of their curve, but it's not something you want in your starting hand. It's something you want to draw more in the mid game. You're more looking for your Trapper, Sentry, Archer is okay too. Harsh Winds isn't so great in the starting hand, but it's not a dead card in the matchup by any means. Trifarian Assessor or Glory Seeker could be pretty potent in this match as well.
Yeah, let's see where we end up. I mean, the Sentry probably comes down on 2, unless Stan puts down a particularly deadly threat.
Ooh, this is dirty. We have the Sentry, and if it attacks in, then the Lucian can get killed by the Brittle Steel.
Yeah.
So dirty.
And I think definitely worth the effort. Even if there's a way out of it, which...
Going to take the damage here instead. Feels like the Trifarian Glory Seeker is the more safe play because it can be followed up with the Icevale Archer. And Brittle Steel being a burst card, being able to have the flexibility and utility in the future, decides that it is the better play here, which... I think his line is, I mean, our both initial things were like, oh yeah, do the cheeky play, but if the cheeky play doesn't happen, if they don't take the attack and fear of Brittle Steel, which isn't really good for Demacia in the first place, but this is a bit safer where you make sure you get the value no matter what. In Trifarian Glory Seeker, its value goes down as the game goes on. In most cases, not all cases, you know, we've seen the cheeky Glory Seeker earlier killing an Ashe, which was pretty nuts. But having the Brittle Steel at burst speed is ideal when you can do it, especially when there are so many quick attacks in Stan's list.
So we see these, the Lucian came down right on 2. The Zed came down now on 4. No, it's on 3. And then now starting turn 4 with a Zed in play. Not too shabby. Both of those are pretty strong, aggressive champions, especially because of their quick attack. And here we go, Zed always being a strong, like, open swinger because of the ability to just double himself. And by the way, there's just no good trading on the defense when it comes to Zed.
Except for when you have Frostbite in your hand, or Brittle Steel, I should say. And Cephalopod making sure this is what he wants to do, probably checking for the buffs in the list. Obviously, back-to-back is out of range if there is a back-to-back in the hand.
Now that
there
it's
could
six,
be
now
repass,
that it's 6
but
mana.
even, yeah. The repass is, I mean, who really cares about repass here, right? It's not actually getting that much value. I mean, they have to have an answer too for this Glory Seeker as well in the future. So the fact that they played that, they have to have something in their hand where they feel comfortable saving Zed here. At least I think they would, or else you'd really want that damage. Wow, Kato is a nice top deck, potentially.
That's an excellent top deck, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage. I thought, wait, we're not the aggressive deck here? Or I guess Cephalopod's not the aggressive deck here. So used to watching it from this side.
That's right.
So because the Zed was saved earlier, it kind of tips Cephalopod off that, let's see what happens here first. Is there ever going to be a Harsh Winds play here? Probably not, but no, there is no way to save Zed, so it's a bit interesting that they did decide to save it there. I guess more so making sure that Zed 2 for 2'd instead of got 2 for 1'd. Thinking about making like a mini blocker for the 3-1. Besides that, developing Kato is the way to go. It does have the Elixir of Iron to preserve the health as well as harsh winds if necessary as well. Because most likely the scout attack just goes through the first time and then the sentry is developed after.
It will really be interesting to see what comes down on Stan's side here. You know, for a Bannerman deck, this is a fairly sparse board. Cythria, I just wonder... I mean, it does give, when it attacks, it will give the Grizzled Ranger enough to trade into Kato.
Ooh. Cythria coming down. Alright. So, here comes, I guess, maybe the harsh winds come down here? I mean, or you just eat the... oh, it seems... yeah, I mean, if you're going to play the harsh winds, you're going to block with Kato, or you're just going to block with a 2-1 and ignore the 4-2. But because there aren't really other plays for Cephalopod here, he kind of has to play the harsh winds.
Yeah.
Which isn't fun by any means.
No, and I think it's... I mean, you have to, right?
Yeah, and because of the... ooh. Because of the fearsome, that Kato has to block the other fearsome unit, which is not ideal for Cephalopod here. But, however, this Kato attack will help out quite a bit on the next turn. Ooh, Ash too! It goes so well with the Culling Strike here.
Yeah, that's a really lovely pickup there. And Ash, I believe, is at 4, so Ash will level up once she swings.
Oh, that's pretty great.
Oh, yeah.
And plus the
Let's
overall
see.
damage from Kato on top of that.
Yeah, and even if you don't Culling Strike, right, you do have, if they have a, if they try to, I don't know, single combat or something, Ash, you do have the Elixir to try to protect. I can't imagine they would probably use the bear, not Cythria, but never. Oh, now they'll use Cythria. But you get the swing first, at least get the freeze.
Yep, and the Elixir of Iron will help protect Ash here. Maybe there's a chance that the Culling Strike is played instead, depending on what this block looks like. If there is something such as, I mean, if there is Repost, we've already seen one of them. This Ash might be dead, but it just might not matter.
Well, and also now it's leveled up, so any Ashes in the future will also have that lovely level up ability.
Yes, make it where 0 attack creatures cannot block. Which, against Demacia, there's only a few buffs here and there that are for attack base. There's quite a few more health ones, such as Ranger's Resolve. But, yeah, Ash will not even die here either. And this is a lot of damage coming through for Cephalopod.
Yeah, it's going to put Stan
everything
down to
living.
10. Or to 2, excuse me. Down 10 to 2.
And goodbye to Cythria. And the barrier Cythria, the fact that Cythria was barriered here does make me wonder if they realized, okay, that makes sense, but the fact that Cythria was buried here, I wonder if they realized that Ash was going to level up. Oh, that was played before the Ash, never mind. I was going to say, you'd barrier something else, but no, that was before Ash was even played.
No,
whichever one will.
yeah, I'm pretty sure Ash did come down first. I think you were right the first time. Because I was thinking about the single combat.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now you can Elixir of Iron and... no, you can't. Elixir of Iron won't save it off the Cythria and the War Chefs.
Alright. So... still going pretty low here, but of course Cephalopod is fine with just doing whatever. He can later follow up with the crystal arrow into Reckoning and destroy the whole board and then open attack with the 5/4. But there is probably more development from Stan, so he'll have to kind of hold back on doing that. Maybe he'll be able to get something a bit cheeky to go through. The opponent's still deciding, do I want to even attack with the Cytheria, and who do I want to buff? Decides to go ahead and take it, and I mean, this is not much damage once the Cytheria is blocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's looking, he keeps eyeing this crystal arrow plus Reckoning. It looks pretty juicy. And on top of that, Kato and a 5/4 going to have Overwhelm to get into. Is looking really, really good for Cephalopod right here, right now.
Yeah, and keep in mind, if Cephalopod wins this match, this game, that will be the match, I believe. Remember, this is a first place match for $150 put up by the Legends of Runeterra Global Academy for this tournament. So both players can get some cold hard cash, but playing for twice the money for the first place at $150. See if Cephalopod can close it down.
Yeah, doing the math here, saying, is it better for me to just pass, try to be a bit more greedy and get them to play something else, and then I'm able to get my attack in even if they do pass, deciding instead to opt to take out the 4 health unit and hope that something is a little bit lower. Finds the Farron, which will be a for sure game closer. There is no coming back from that, essentially, and he's here smiling, knows that Farron is going to seal the deal if this attack next turn doesn't do it, assuming that this Reckoning goes off as well. And there is a Radiant Guardian, which will stay alive even with the Reckoning. But the Farron will have a lot to say about it.
Well, the Farron will have something to say about it, especially with the breakthrough. But, yeah, you never know.
And the Icefill Archer! What a top deck!
That is absolutely huge.
Insane.
They'll heal.
Oh, they
and
obviously
just
didn't have an answer.
Surrender.
Congratulations to Cephalopod being the LORGA Championship of 2020 winner.
Yeah, that was a blast to watch Cephalopod pilot all through those last several matches. Really good deck lineup, I think. Excellent piloting, good patience when the server crashed. All together very fun.
And he really just adds another trophy to the shelf. Cephalopod has performed so well in so many tournaments. It's not even a surprise to see his name being #1. He's just been a great player, very consistent, and very deserving as well. Brought solid lists, played very well. I can't even be like, wow, I never, this tournament was just so high quality. I never cringed or was like, oh, that was a bad play. Like, everything all had a reasoning to it, and you could see the players, like, the reasons behind the decisions, and overall just a spectacular tournament with spectacular players in it.
Yeah, very, very fun, and big thanks, of course, once again to the LOR Global Academy. That is an excellent Discord community that I highly encourage everyone to go and check out if you haven't already. There's tons of excellent resources, some great players who are involved over there. There's even the ability to get coaching if you're newer to the game, whether it's LOR or card games in general. Deck lists to be shared, good times to be had. So definitely check out that Discord community. And remember, big thanks to them for putting this up, as well as the money. So that was first place, $150. The second place got $75. So Stan still walked away a happy man. And then third and fourth got $15 as well. So really great prize support. I'm sure they'll have more events in the future. So keep your eyes peeled.
All right, well, that wraps it up for us. Hey, thanks everyone. Yeah, I'll go ahead and chat with y'all if you want to, Ian. You can hang out too and talk to chat. But yeah, it was such a great tournament. Thanks everyone. Hey, good games, Omega Drakes. I casted you good type earlier, but thanks. Glad that you all enjoyed the casting. I'm always open to feedback too. I feel like I hadn't been casting for like a couple months, just because I mostly cast Legends before, but it felt really good getting back into casting again. Hey, thanks Tiny Grimes. Like, it
Yeah,
feels
that was definitely
really
a lot of
good.
fun. I will say that the time of night for me was definitely burning me out quick.
Yeah, it's 1 a.m. for Ian right now for Dead Broke Nerd. It's only 11:45 for me, so pretty classic night. But I feel like for coming back after not casting for a bit, I feel like it went really well. So I'm glad that you all feel that way too. And it seems like everyone seems happy, so thanks for the support and thanks for watching too. It was great. 107 people out here watching the tournament. Very grateful for
Dang,
that.
That's awesome. That's really great. Yeah.
That's how we do things in Bilgewater.